You may begin.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Presley Hart, and today I'll be presenting the Yellowstone National Park. Imagine yourself standing in an area where it seems like it was untouched by the harm of human civilization. That is Yellowstone National Park. And today I'll be presenting to you the park, home to its geological wonders and diverse wildlife, all adapted into existence. Yellowstone National Park was established in the year 1872, and it became the world's first national park. It was signed into law by President Grant, and its creation marked a huge milestone in the conservation movement and set an example for the protection of cultural heritage. Its crazy features were first documented by explorers in the early 19th century, including the Lewis and Clark expedition in 1806. These explorations led to widespread interest in the region's natural wonders, and there were concerns about the preservation of Yellowstone's unique features and wildlife, and it led to calls for its protection in the late 19th century. Advocates such as geologist Ferdinand Hayden played key roles in raising awareness and lobbying for its designation as a national park. Yellowstone has been inhabited by indigenous peoples for thousands of years, with evidence of human presence dating back to at least 11,000 years, or 1100,000 years. Tribes such as the Shoshone-Bannock, Nez Perce, Crow, Blackfeet, Gros-Ventre, Arapaho, Kootenai, and Salish have ancestral ties to the park and the region, and they continue to maintain cultural connections to the land. With the construction of roads, trails, and lodging facilities in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, it made way for tourists. The development of tourism infrastructure, including the Old Faithful Inn, played a huge role to the park's popularity and economic growth. Yellowstone's establishment as a national park inspired the creation of other protected areas around the world. Its success as a model for conservation has influenced environmental policies and practices globally. Yellowstone has faced many challenges over the years, including habitat loss, invasive species, pollution, and climate change. Conservation efforts, including habitat restoration and wildlife management, with visitor education, continue to address these challenges and ensure the long-term preservation of the park. The first geological wonder is the Old Faithful Geyser. The geyser works kind of like a giant boiling kettle. Underground hot water collects, and it's in a big chamber, also known as a geothermal reservoir. As it gets hotter, pressure builds up until the water explodes and shoots out of the ground because the underlying rock can't hold it no more due to pressure, and it causes it to shoot up in the air just like electricity. It does this regularly because the underground chamber keeps refilling with hot water. This makes Old Faithful a reliable and impressive site for visitors, while also being the most predictable. It brings in more than 4 million tourists a year. The other geological wonder is the hot springs, and they're natural wonders formed by underground volcanic activity. Deep beneath the surface, water is heated by magma, creating hot springs. These springs release hot water rich in minerals to the surface, creating colorful pools. The vibrant hues are caused by microorganisms thriving in extreme conditions. Unlike geysers, hot springs don't erupt periodically but flow steadily. The hot springs provide crazy habitats for specialized life forms adapted to the hot and mineral-rich features. Yellowstone's hot spring can be dangerous if not treated with caution. This water is extremely hot. It's mainly pretty close to boiling level almost. And the acidity and mineral content can cause harm if ingested or exposed to open wounds. People should always just stay away, stay on the trails and whatnot, just to avoid accidents. The other wonders is the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone. And it was formed over millions of years ago through a combination of volcanic activity and erosion. And about 600,000 years ago, volcanic eruptions covered the region with thick layers of lava and ash. Over time, the Yellowstone River carved its way through these layers, gradually forming the deep and steep canyon we see today. Erosion from the flowing water, along with other natural forces like ice and wind, helped shape the canyon's rugged cliffs and dramatic features. This process of erosion continues today, but at a much slower pace. The river continues to reshape the landscape of the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone. And on the bottom picture, this is Lower Falls. And it's widely known for its impressive volume of water, especially during peak snowmelt in early summer and late spring. And then the top picture is just, I was on top of the waterfall actually, and yeah, it was just crazy. The other one is the Yellowstone Caldera, or it's more commonly known as the Yellowstone Supervolcano, but it's scientifically known as the caldera. And it's a large volcanic feature, and it's one of the largest active volcanic systems in the world. The caldera was formed during a series of volcanic eruptions over the past 2 million years, with the most recent one being around 70,000 years ago. It left behind a crater measuring 30 miles wide. That bottom picture is the crater. It covers a large area of the park. It is recognized by its geothermal activity, including geysers and hot springs, which are openings in the Earth's crust and release steam and gases. This activity is fueled by the presence of magma, again under the chamber in the bottom. It heats the groundwater and creates the hydrothermal features that Yellowstone is famous for. If the volcano were to erupt, it could have catastrophic consequences for the surrounding area and potentially the world. An eruption is rare. I mean, even though everyone talks about it erupting soon, it's not going to erupt soon. Seeing that top right picture, that is the, I guess you could say, potential like kill zone and ash zone. And yeah, I guess we're pretty much dead. We can't get around it. It releases like volcanic gases such as sulfur dioxide, and it could lead to air pollution and climate change on a global scale. With the probability of eruption occurring in Yellowstone in the future is low, it's still monitored closely by scientists to better understand its activity and potential hazards. Some of the wildlife that is known in Yellowstone is the bison. It is one of the largest remaining wild herds in North America, and these animals can usually be seen just grazing on open fields and grasslands. The next is a gray wolf. They were reintroduced in the early 1990s, and these wolves, I guess, play a big role in maintaining the park's ecosystem. The next is bald eagles. You can see those are pretty common actually. They're always just flying around. And usually they'll be just, I don't know, perched by rivers and lake shores hunting for fish and small animals. The next one is elk. Elk are really abundant in the park, and they can be seen in various habitats, including grasslands, forests, and wetlands. And during the rutting season, you can hear the male elk, or they're called bull elk, and they can be heard bugling as they look for a mate. Next is grizzly bear. Yellowstone is the only one of the only few places that grizzly bears actually roam free, and yeah, they're pretty dangerous. Next is moose. Moose are not as commonly seen, but they are still pretty prevalent in the area. Next is bighorn sheep. Those mountain climbers are in certain areas of Yellowstone, usually on the peaks of mountains, and yeah, when I guess they climb mountains. Coyotes, those are the most common. They're just like little dogs sitting around. You can always see them. Like no one's surprised by seeing them. The cultural significance to tribal nations is Yellowstone is situated within the traditional homelands of tribes, including, like I said, the Shoshone, Bannock, Nez Perce, Crow, Blackfeet, Grovant, Arapaho, and Kootenai and Salish tribes. And for these tribes, lands within Yellowstone has been inhabited and used for thousands of years, serving as a place where their ancestors lived, hunted, gathered, and conducted sacred ceremonies. Yellowstone's geothermal features, such as the geysers and hot springs, are considered sacred sites for these tribal people. These natural wonders are believed to be sacred and used for ceremonial purposes. The tribes have maintained connection to these sites for generations, viewing them as important pieces of their culture in spiritual ways. Local tribal nations have historically relied on Yellowstone's diverse ecosystems for survival by gathering plants and food for medicine, hunting animals and fishing the park's lakes and rivers. These traditional resources have helped these communities sustain for centuries and continue to play a huge role in cultural practices and heritages. I don't think any of you guys really knew this, because I didn't know this, but many tribal nations retain treaty rights to hunt, fish, and gather within Yellowstone and its surrounding areas. These rights are protected by federal law and acknowledge the tribe's sovereignty and traditional use of the land. The tribal governments actively engage in the management and conservation of Yellowstone's resources, and they advocate for the preservation of the cultural heritage and protection of the tree growths. And the picture on top, that's a picture from like the early 1900s. I believe those are Crow people, and yeah, I don't know, they're pretty bad. In conclusion, Yellowstone is really special. It's the first national park, and it's full of amazing things like geysers, waterfalls, and wildlife. But it's up to us as humans to take care of it. We can do simple things like having respect for the land and learning how to protect it. By working together, we can keep Yellowstone and other parks safe and beautiful. Thank you.